All right, guys, how you doing? Today we're going to continue on our absolute key to occult science. We're going to look at what's known as a septenary, which means the law of seven. It is the fundamental relationship um, with generativity and the number seven. This is why the creation week, as we're going to see, creation was done in 7 days, with seven being the day of rest, the Sabbath. So this isn't going to be too long. I'm going to make this really simple. I think you guys will really understand this by the time it's all said and done. So let's go ahead and get into it. So the basis for a septenary, which means seven, results from the need for balance, polarity, and gender. If you see the Hermetic laws, the law of gender is that everything has a gender. Traditionally, the sun and the moon are the masculine and the feminine. And that's what they represent. If anybody's familiar with like basic zodiac astrology and stuff, the sun is your conscious mind and the moon is your subconscious mind. So with the established tetragrammaton called the quaternary model, because of the law of four, uh, essentially all it's doing is taking that and doing it twice to establish a positive and a negative. So a septenary, as you will see, the first quaternary, one, two, three, and four, as we've already reviewed. One is the active, the fire. Two is the passive, the water. Three is the neuter, which is the joining of one and two, which is the air element. And four is the regeneration. Because as we looked at already, four can be reduced back to one. And therefore it ends the first quaternary, but then it will begin the second quaternary. So the second quaternary begins with four as the active fire element. Five is the passive water element. Six is the neuter air element. And seven is got that little icon because it is the regeneration, but it also is the first septenary. This is, as we're about to see, the creation week from Genesis. Yes, so the two act as an active quaternary and a passive, which means that the first is the masculine and the second is the feminine. So here is just a visualization. This was from the Tarot of the Bohemians by Pappas. The four can be reduced back to one using the Theosophic addition and reduction, as we've already looked at. So the Theosophic addition, or the tetractys with 10 dots, or four rows with 10 dots. And then since we have 10, that is reduced using the reduction. 1 plus 0 is 1. So this means that 4 ends the first quaternary, the first tetragrammaton series, and begins the next one. So when you visualize this or draw this, it looks like a triangle with correspondence to the letters of the sacred name, the Yod, the He, the Vow, and the He, with 4, the regeneration, the manifest, being placed in the center of the triangle, because that will be used to continue the second negative, passive, feminine quaternary. Yeah, so the second quaternary begins with 4 at the top. We have 4, 5, 6, and of course 7 is written in the middle, as was the case for 4 in the last triangle. And again, the Theosophic addition of 7, 7 plus 6 plus 5 plus 4 plus 3 plus 2 plus 1, that's 28. 2 plus 8 is 10, and 1 plus 0 is 1. I do want to say, though, the triangle is depicted upwards just for the sake of reading, but as you will see here, when these two join, the second, the passive, is placed upside down. The septenary is represented by two triangles united. This would, sorry, I lost my train of thought. This would be represented with a, what's that called? It's on the tip of my tongue. I'll remember it in a minute. The septenaries are represented by two triangles united. This is the basis for the alchemical sign fire, which is an up triangle, and the alchemical sign for water, which is a down triangle. With the basic concept now understood, I will next show you how the biblical creation week follows this pattern. So, the septenary is this, this symbol, which has been referred to by many names. Now they call it the Star of David, which is not the original name of it. This is as a matter of fact, a joining of two. Um, what's the I'm lost for words right now. I can't remember. It is the intersection of two, basically like 3D shapes. I didn't prepare with the words, but I will get those in a moment for you. Just for the sake of showing you how this continues, we could do this again. This would form the second septenary, beginning at 7, because the first one ended at 7. So the next one would begin with 7, 8, 9, and 10. That would form the next positive ternary, quaternary. And then it would end at 10 and continue. 10, 11, 12, 13. And so the next septenary would span 7 through 13. And it could be done again beginning at 13 and ending at 19. We're not going to go too crazy into all of the points about the septenary. That'll be for another video, but I just want to show you why this is important. And now I'm going to actually show you how this is very clearly shown in the book of Genesis. So Genesis chapter 1 in the creation week. So the first day of creation, God creates light and darkness. The second day of creation, he creates the firmament and the waters. On the third day of creation, the land and the sea, along with the vegetation. And then here is this 4. And you'll notice the color coding. On day 4, God creates the sun, the moon, and the stars. But what is important and interesting is that day 4 is the creation of what are called the luminaries. The luminaries, as far as I understand it, and I will show you a definition for those in a moment, the luminaries, along with the sun, the moon, and the stars are often known as luminaries. And so what I'm trying to kind of show here is that on day 4, again, remember 4 is that kind of that linking. It ends the first series and it begins the next series. So on day 4, you notice you have now timekeeping. God even says, let these be for signs and for keeping time, essentially. So what's happening on day 4 is that now that the earth and all the things on the earth that are created, now time can pass. Now days can happen. Now cycles have been established, passing of time and cycles established. Okay, let's continue. Day 5, God creates the sea creatures and the birds. Day 6, God creates the land animals and humans. And of course, on day 7, God rests on the Sabbath. So, on day 1, because we know 1 is an active, we know 4 is an active regeneration. So, on day 1, God creates light and dark. On day 4, he creates the sun, the moon, and the stars. And all of those together constitute the luminaries, which allow the passing of time and cycles. But notice how the passing of time is also dependent on light and darkness, that original duality. And then you'll notice that on day 2 and day 5, we have a little bit of a correspondence. God creates the firmament and the waters, and then on day 5, he creates the sea creatures and the birds. And of course, on day 3 and day 6, he creates the land and the sea. and he creates the land, animals, and humans. And so you notice that 2 and 5, 3 and 6 almost have a little bit of a connection, because he's first creating on day 2 the location, and then on day 5 he's filling that location with creatures and life. On day 3 he's creating the land and the sea, and then on day 6 he's filling it with life. And of course, day 7, rest. What is rest? Rest is this idea of it really encodes a cycle. So to rest, you have to have something to rest from. In this case, that is creation. So the cycle of creation, the septenary, he now completes and rests on the seventh day, but that is dependent on there being day and night, sun, moon, and stars to keep time. The idea that God has a day of rest, the Sabbath day of rest, is dependent on there being a concept of days, meaning there is a concept of day and night, and there needs to be something to keep the time, the luminaries, to say, hey, today is the seventh day, not the sixth day. Okay? So just to kind of recap this, we'll go through it one more time. The Yod element, the fire, day 1 is light. The water, day 2 is the firmament. The air, or the vowel, is day 3, land and vegetation. The second hay, end of day 4, end of the first series, is the earth is complete as a system with the luminaries to keep time. That is the active element for the next quaternary. So the Yod now becomes the fire, the luminaries as the active organizing principle. That's very important. The luminaries organize the system into days, cycles, with day 5 being the water, the hay, water and air creatures. Day 6, the vowel, the air. Also, air is commonly associated with intelligence. So the earth creatures, obviously man and humans. And finally, day 7, the rest and the Sabbath completion. And so the creation week is a perfect encapsulation of the principles of the septenary, and even the principles of the tetragrammaton and the quaternary, that special relationship between 3 and 4. You'll find that actually all of the numbers 0 to 10 really are foundational. So here we go, the luminaries. We're not going to focus too much on this, but I did want to give you an actual definition so you have something to work off of. In the Hebrew, mayor, I believe is how you say that, luminaries. Also in the plural, let's see, properly, a luminous body or a luminary, light as an element, figuratively, brightness or cheerfulness, like a chandelier, a bright light. And then in the Greek word phoster, light, illuminator, an illuminator, a luminary, brilliancy. So a lot of times these will point to stars and sources of light. Okay, so where this gets interesting is what's known as the Little Genesis, or the Book of Jubilees. The Book of Jubilees really has a lot to say about 7 and the way that the septenary cycles are used for timekeeping. So, the Book of Jubilees is a rewritten account of history spanning creation to the legislation on Sinai, claiming supreme authority as an esoteric tradition. It purports to be a direct revelation from God to Moses on Mount Sinai, dictated by the angel of the presence. Key points. First, structural law. The entire system is chronologically rigid and heptadic, which means base 7. The Jubilee cycle. History is segmented by the Jubilee period, defined symmetrically as 49 years, which is 7-year weeks of 7 years. A year week is just 7 years. Calendar dogma. Time is enslaved to a mandatory 364-day solar year, 52 weeks exactly. This refusal of astronomical reality is necessary because this division of days is ordained on the heavenly tables. So 1 week year is, I also refer to it as a sabbatical year. It is 7 years. So if I say a sabbatical year or 1 week year, that is a period of 7 years. And a jubilee period. A jubilee is defined as 7 week years, or 7 times 7 years, 49 years. Interesting to notice that the Catholic Church still does celebrate jubilees, and I am not making any connections to the Catholic jubilees. This is just from the Book of Jubilees, in reference to the Law of Seven, the Septenaries. So in the future, maybe I'll look into that more, but not at the moment. Okay, so to wrap this up, I just want to show you how the Jubilee cycle really encodes this. But this is more or less just to kind of elucidate a point. It's not something you really need to worry about or remember. So the Yod years, these are the years of the Jubilee period, or the 49 years that correspond to the active, the Yod. So those would be years 1, 4, 7, 10, 13, 16, 19, 22, 25, 28, 31, 34, 37, 40, 43, 46. Those are 16 years, which, remember the quaternary, the tetragrammaton, 16 is 4 times 4. Okay, so the years that correspond to He, or the water element, those are years 2, 5, 8, 11, etc. I'm not going to read them all. The vowel years are 3, 6, 9, 12, 15. Now, here is probably the most, I guess, part that I have to kind of explain well. So the second He, the final set of years, they have those braces around them because if, let's use 4 as an example. If 4 is both the end of one series and the beginning of another, we have to account for it playing dual roles. So you notice that 1, the first year itself, is not part of the second He, because 1 was never the end, 1 was only the start. So 4, 7, 10, 13, 16, those are as their ending counterpart, not their beginning counterpart. And notice that 49 also does not have braces because 49th year is the end. And so these each have 16 years. That is 49 years. And then upon the completion of the 49th year, on that 50th year, that would be a Jubilee year. So one Jubilee period is 49 years. Upon the completion of the 49th year, it would be a Jubilee year. But that would also be the first year of the new Jubilee. Yeah, upon the completion of year 49, year 50 becomes a Jubilee year. And guys, that is the basic idea of the septenary law. I hope you guys were able to understand this. If not, feel free to leave comments with your questions, and I will answer those. And I will also make all of these presentations and whatnot available in the description, so you guys can review these and all the sources you need to understand this if it's something that you're interested in. So thank you guys.